the great house at Collinwood in the dark and disturbing world of parallel time. Here, Barnabas Collins has discovered that one evil woman has set out to destroy Quentin and Maggie Collins. Barnabas knows that the woman who calls herself Alexis, but who is really Angelique, will stop at nothing to achieve her goal. On this night, he has found what he believes to be a way of sending Angelique back to her grave.
Barnabas, I had a terrible time getting here. Angelique kept asking me so many questions.
Julia, I'm sorry, but I had to see you.
Has something happened to Roxanne?
I put her back in the secret room. Julia, we've got to find a man named Claude North. He may be the key to destroying Angelique.
Claude North. Wasn't that the name on the sketch you found?
Yes. And tonight, well, I found Roxanne in the cemetery. She was lying across the grave of a man named Claude North.
But if he's dead, Barnabas, then...
I know, but the one who died in the graveyard died in 1866. That sketch I found is contemporary. It couldn't have been done more than a year or two ago. I don't understand what the connection is. That Claude North is somehow very important in Roxanne's life.
Are you expecting somebody?
No.
Maybe Angelique followed me here.
Hide in the other room.
Yes.
Inspector Hamilton.
Good evening, Mr. Collins. May I come in?
By all means. What can I do for you?
I'm here to ask certain questions concerning the death of William Loomis.
Inspector, I don't know what more I can tell you.
It isn't you I want to question, Mr. Collins. It's Mrs. Loomis. Is she at home?
Yes, but she's resting now. She's been under a great strain.
I can understand that. But I do consider this is urgent. Would you mind waking her?
That won't be necessary. I haven't been sleeping too well these days. Too much to think about. Too many memories, most of them bad. Isn't that right, Cousin Barnabas?
Carolyn, you should be resting.
Oh, no. No, the inspector wants to ask me some questions.
Mrs. Loomis, I'll try to be brief. I know what a trying time this has been for you.
Oh, it's all right, Inspector. I'll be happy to answer your questions as soon as I pour a little drink.
Where are you going?
To get the brandy.
Well, it's here. You left it here earlier. Carolyn, do you really think you should?
Barnabas, you are my devoted cousin. You are not my keeper.
No, I'm
Are
not.
you? Well, now we've already gotten something settled and you haven't even asked a question.
Mrs. Loomis, are you quite satisfied that your husband took his own life?
Have you any reason to think otherwise, Inspector?
Have you, Mr. Collins?
No.
Then let Mrs. Loomis answer the question.
Will jumped from the tower room. That's all I know.
Is it possible that he could have been pushed?
That house, anything is possible.
Exactly what do you mean by that?
Do you want to tell him or shall I?
Tell me what?
We're a very strange family, Inspector, and Collinwood is not exactly a picture book house by the sea. Oh, no. There's a skeleton in every closet. And there are lots of closets, baby. Let me put it this way, Inspector. Collinwood is a nice place to visit, but you would not want to live there.
Mrs. Loomis, could there have been any connection between the death of your husband and the death of Bruno Hess?
Could have been. I don't know of it.
Inspector, exactly what is it you're trying to say? That you believe that Will Loomis did not take his own life?
I have no evidence, if that's what you mean. I'm merely very curious. I'm paid to be, Mr. Collins. By the way, were you at Collinwood when the first Mrs. Collins died?
No. I arrived here since then.
I'm planning to question everyone who was in the house on the night that séance was held. I have a list of all the people, one of whom I'm looking forward to seeing.
Oh, who is that?
Julia Hoffman. She's an old friend of mine. I met her when she worked for the Richardsons. But I don't believe I've seen her since she came to Collinwood. It's always nice to renew an old acquaintance, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
Well, Mrs. Loomis, I have one last question. What was the relationship, if any, between your husband and the first Mrs. Collins?
You were right, Inspector. That was your last question.
I see. Well, I'll be off to Collinwood now. Thank you both for your time.
Good night, Inspector.
Good night.
Barnabas, this is terrible. What am I going to do when he questions me?
I don't know, Julia. We've been lucky to avoid something like this so far.
Yes, but it's happened now. It's bad enough that I don't know anything that happened the night of the séance, but what if he wants to talk over old times?
Maybe you'd better stay here tonight.
I can't. Angelique expects me back at the house.
It's all getting kind of sticky, isn't it? All the pretending and the lies.
Barnabas, I don't have any choice. I must go back. Just try to bluff my way through it.
Yes, there's nothing else you can do, but be careful, Julia.
Oh, I feel another lecture coming on.
I only have this to say to you, Carolyn. If you keep on drinking like this, sooner or later you're going to say the wrong thing to the wrong person, and you're going to be in serious trouble.
You were in the house, but you didn't participate in the séance.
No, I didn't.
Where were you when you heard Mrs. Collins scream?
I don't remember.
Julia, that's not like you. You always had an excellent memory. I should think you'd remember a thing like that.
I was startled and frightened. I was in the servants' quarters, as I remember.
What did you do?
Well, I came running in here.
Describe what you saw.
Well, Mrs. Collins was lying on the floor, and Dr. Longworth was with her, and he was examining her, and then he announced to everyone that she was dead.
Julia, you didn't arrive in the room in time to see Mr. Collins with his hands round his wife's neck.
No, I didn't.
I see. Well, I don't think I have any further questions. It's good to see you again, Julia.
It's good to see you.
Do you ever see the Richardsons?
No, I haven't talked to them in some time.
They were always so very fond of you. I don't know why you ever left them. Of course, my wife and I shared their view. You were always especially considerate of Jane.
Jane.
My wife.
Oh, yes, of course. How is she?
I beg your pardon.
Your wife.
Julia, you know very well my wife has been dead for 3 years. What in heaven's name made you ask how Jane was? Julia, you were at her funeral.
Oh, I'm sorry, I've been under the strain lately. You were talking about the Richardsons, and I guess my mind just slipped into the past. I said it without thinking.
Julia, you haven't been mistreated here, have you?
No. Why?
I don't know. You've changed so much. I noticed it the moment I saw you. I didn't get that familiar greeting you always gave me. Don't say you've forgotten that, have you?
Of course I haven't.
Then let me hear you say it now. I Guess you have been under a strain. That'll be all, Julia. Thank you for your time.
I think it's outrageous, that man bursting in here, asking a lot of silly questions without warning us.
It's an old police tactic.
He's asked every one of the servants. Elizabeth, myself, and now he's just finished with Julia.
Roger, I don't think you should let it upset you so much.
But there's no need for it.
He hasn't questioned me. I wonder why.
Oh, why should he? You weren't here the night of the seance.
Well, yes, of course, that's true. I wasn't.
Oh, it's a total waste of time. He's not going to learn any more than he already knows. So why does he persist in doing this?
Perhaps he knows more than we think he knows.
What do you mean?
Has it occurred to you, Roger, that perhaps the inspector is here because there's some interesting new development in the case?
Disaster, Barnabas, a total disaster. My meeting with Hamilton. I'm afraid he's gotten to know me.
How could he? How could he possibly figure out that you're a Julia Hoffman from another time?
We can't do that, but he knows I'm not the Julia Hoffman that he once knew. I made too many mistakes, Barnabas. I don't know what to do.
Julia, you're in no danger unless he starts questioning someone else.
And what if that someone else is Angelique? Barnabas, if she finds out, I'm as good as dead.
Inspector, why won't you sit down?
No, thank you. I'll stand. I'm hoping this won't take long.
I was beginning to think you were going to pass me by. I think you've questioned everybody in the house except me.
Oh, I had no intention of passing you by, Miss Stokes. You happen to be the most important reason I'm here.
I do? Why?
First, let me tell you, what I want from you is the truth. The absolute truth. Is that clear?
Yes, of course.
Because you see, Miss Stokes, you're in trouble, and you might as well know it.
What kind of trouble?
It's possible we may have to hold you as an accessory to murder.
Accessory to murder? What are you talking about?
If you're going to pretend you don't know, this is really going to become very difficult.
Look, Inspector, you made the accusation, and I think it's up to you to explain what you mean.
Very well. I obtained a court order almost a week ago to exhume the body of your late sister, Angelique. But we got quite a surprise when we opened her crypt. You see, there was no body there, not even a coffin. But of course, that's no surprise to you, is it, Miss Stokes?
Go on, Inspector.
Well, you can imagine I was a trifle curious at this strange turn of events. It even crossed my mind that someone was trying to keep something from me. Frankly, I didn't know what to do, or which way to turn. I was completely stymied. Until it occurred to me to have another look at Dr. Longworth's journal. That man did know a lot of secrets.
You found something in that journal?
I did indeed. The entry was rather cryptic, but it did state that the body had been destroyed. How or where or why, it doesn't say. But it isn't very difficult to figure out the why of it.
Inspector.
You better let me finish. The journal entry also contained two names, Quentin Collins and yours. I can only conclude that together the three of you destroyed the body of Angelique Collins.
No, that's not true.
Then tell me what is true, Miss Stokes. But do it quickly, please, because I'm running out of patience.
Well, the body was destroyed. That is true. Cyrus and Quentin did it.
How and where?
They took the casket out of the crypt and they burned it.
How long ago?
Almost 2 months. I was against it at first.
Then what on earth made you agree?
Look, Inspector, there is something that you don't know. We opened the casket and looked at Angelique's body. She had been dead for 6 months, and yet her body was perfectly preserved.
Perfectly preserved? You don't expect me to believe that,
I
do you?
swear to you it's true. It frightened all of us. Angelique had been involved in the occult. She swore that she would return from the grave.
Miss Stokes, please spare me the rest of that story. The fact is, Quentin Collins destroyed the body of his first wife out of fear. Fear that someday an autopsy would be performed and he would be revealed as her murderer.
No, that isn't true. Quentin could never have killed her. I know that. Otherwise, I would never have let him destroy the body. I would have come to you.
Where is Quentin Collins now?
I don't know. I really don't. I swear I don't.
Where did he and Dr. Longworth bury the remains?
Somewhere in the woods.
I'm sorry if I had to be rather harsh with you, Miss Stokes. I think your belief in Quentin's innocence is sincere. But I must ask you not to leave Collinsport. I may want to question you further.
I understand.
Oh, before I go, I'm curious to know something about your housekeeper, Julia Hoffman.
What about her?
She hasn't been ill, has she?
Yeah. No.
It's very strange. Her behavior, I mean.
What's strange about it?
Well, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a little peculiar. You see, while I was questioning her, she asked me how my wife was. She attended my wife's funeral 3 years ago. She was very embarrassed at having asked the question. Said her mind had drifted back to the past. I don't know. She just didn't seem like the Julia Hoffman I know. Well, good night, Miss Stokes.
Good night, Inspector.
Don't we look very much the lord of the manor now that master's gone away?
Do you realize what time it is?
I could never understand why people are shocked when they see someone drinking in the morning. Is it any worse for you then than it is at night? Cat got your tongue, Uncle Roger.
I think your behavior is shocking.
Oh, shocking. Yes, yes. Yes, and it really takes something terrible to shock the people in this house. People can kill each other, jump out of windows. They can curse and hate each other. Nobody seems to mind. But to be a morning drinker, that shocks people.
I happen to care about you. I don't like to see you like this.
Then don't look. It happens. I find that drinking is my sole means of support.
Now, what is that supposed to mean?
It happens it's the only way I can live with the terrible secrets.
What secrets?
Wouldn't you like to know? Wouldn't you just like to know some of the things I know? I bet you'd give your last cent to hear some of the things I could tell you.
You're obviously too drunk to know what you're talking. I'll leave you to your misery.
Uncle Roger, if you stay, I'll tell you the biggest secret of all.
I'm in no mood for your games.
Oh, it's no game, dear Uncle. This secret concerns someone you loved very much.
Who?
What would you say if I told you I can prove that Alexis is really Angelique?